Let's talk about that last scene, because it ruined me. I was a bawling mess. And I know I'm not alone because it was on my socials and I see people talk about that last scene and how it basically broke everyone. So I thought I'd talk about that scene and try to analyze why it's such a tearjerker, because when you look at it, it's not a big scene like a high stake, loud declaration of love like this scene, which, side note, was everything a period drama fanatic like myself could ask for. But instead, this scene was quiet, simple, but highly emotional all the same. Charlotte and George are having a simple conversation about one of their children expecting a baby, thus securing the succession and royal line. It got me thinking to what Bryan Cranston said about audiences crying during a performance. I'm sure he's not the only person who have said this, but I watched his Hot Ones interview recently, and this is what he said about characters crying.
If a character cries easily, the audience doesn't have to. But if a character tries not to cry, that's when the audience will.
Watching movies or TV shows is one of the ways we exercise empathy because we are literally put in this world of a protagonist and going on a journey through their story. And this scene takes place at the end of that journey, it being the literal last scene of the series. At this point, we have gone through their story for these 6 episodes and have witnessed their love story in the past and have not really seen their interaction together in their present day in this Bridgerton timeline. The only interactions we've seen in their present or current age are the 2 small scenes in the first 2 seasons of Bridgerton, where we understand that their love story is a tragic one, but not yet know the full story. The Queen is clearly devastated at the state of George, and we are left to assume that they hardly interact because he is never lucid. So, when we get to this scene, we see that she is able to reach out to him when they're in private, and he's able to recognize what she's doing. And this is when it all comes together in these 6 episodes. We see current Charlotte stressing the need to continue the royal line. And when she finally gets the news that it is happening, she's excited to tell George this happy news, and we get to see them having a normal conversation at the current time, after all the years of their love and George's illness has passed. It's beautiful because we get to see them still be able to connect even after George's condition worsens. And it is tragic because we know that it does not happen often and they're not able to have this in ordinary circumstances. It shows that love prevails, but so does tragedy. We are moved because of what is not said in the scene. I know you're in there somewhere, and I'll always be here waiting for you to come. And this moment of joy between them, both of them know that this is their only safe space and are both thinking about the inevitability that they would have to leave the safe space and not have the connection they want to stay. When George says, "Fancy seeing you here," a light-hearted joke about them being under the bed and how silly it is, Charlotte laughs but also wants to cry because of the extent of what they need to do to have some semblance of normalcy. And she's not able to have just George with her when she leaves. It's us knowing that this moment is not going to last. This happiness is what makes us grieve with them. We are reminded of the conversation they had under the bed about having only a half life together and not a full one. This scene brings it full circle, as it wasn't a situation where they magically lived happily ever after, but instead had to work through his illness and find whatever happiness they could together. It's sad because instead of resolution to their challenges together at the end of the story, everything George feared about not being able to get better and having a full life with Charlotte did indeed happen. And we, as a modern audience, feel for them as whatever George needs, whatever kind of healthcare he needed to be able to get through his illness, was just not available to him. And we're left with this sinking feeling of if only medicine and therapy were advanced enough to not only treat him, but treat him like a human being. We root for our protagonists and want them to overcome and win, but this scene is a reminder of the fact that they did not indeed win. And George says, "You did not go over the wall." It is not just a callback to their first meeting, but also their first conversation under the bed when he tells her that he would understand if she leaves him. Those words carry a lot of weight, history, and the journey of their difficult love story, as there are probably countless times throughout their life together that Charlotte could metaphorically go over the wall and leave him. And it is in this moment he's remembering that and recognizing her steadfast loyalty and love up to this point in their lives. And she in turn, is moved by his memory of her. And because this moment is rare and they're cherishing in the joy of it instead of the sadness of it, it is up to us, the audience, to recognize that beautiful but tragic love. That this lovely moment between them is fleeting, and both will return to a state of despair after this, with George being in a state of confusion and not understanding what's happening in his own mind, and Charlotte having to witness him suffering in that state. That despite their enormous love for one another, love did not indeed overcome the odds, and that just leaves you in a heaping ball of mess.